I'm just going to do an insight video today. I've just been sort of, I sat sitting there and I was looking at a few comments on sort of like Instagram yesterday, and there was a spiritual person that was putting stuff on there from their their sort of like their Instagram posts, and I sort of like I've like listened to this person. The lady's name is Leanne Rose. She works with something called the Gaia Collective, which is a collective of six-dimensional beings. And I was just looking at what was what was being talked about yesterday, and it was very much talking about like manifestation and creation. And so I was starting to sort of like get an insight into this morning, because like a bit as I've been going for my own spiritual journey, my own pathway at the moment. It's very much around letting go. It's very much around sort of releasing, but also it's about sort of this notion of like source energy. I want to keep talking about source energy, and it's sort of like it's this creation, it's this creation, and it's the blueprint of creation of all things. And like it's sort of like one of the things is like being about being human, and sort of like we're going through this and the joy of being human, and the pain and the suffering and stuff like that. And in that sense, like I don't really get that or see it in that sense of like this joy of pain and suffering. It doesn't really sort of like resonate with me in that sense, because it's like being human is like is the limitation in a sense for me in my belief system. Because when we start to awaken to spirit, and we awaken to the spiritual light and the energy and the source energy that we are, the human experience and the pain and the suffering is like a level of vibration. It's a frequency of sort of consciousness. And in that sense, the pain and the suffering is only like a level of consciousness that's been created, but it's been created through limitation, through separation. So through that sort of like sense of, when people say about being human and the joy of suffering, or the joy of the pain of being human, and in a sense that's part of why we've come down here. But in that kind of way, I don't really sort of resonate with that, because I feel, and I with myself, once you're in that source energy, you're in that light and that energy, then you can release those kind of things. And how I see the spiritual experience and the spiritual evolution isn't necessarily about being human. It's about being sort of like being your source energy, expressing that light and that energy. So in that sense, each and every one of our purposes, and I feel this is, when it resonates with me, I feel like, like when I was reading something about Serapis Bey the other day, it was talking about releasing or dissolving lower frequencies. Again, it's like, again, we're getting into this notion of limitations, where we're looking at higher and lower and stuff like that, where it's all part of one. So I mean, in the human form, we try and use words like higher and lower, and you know we start looking at sort of like what's right, what's wrong, and all this kind of stuff. And in the spirit world, we don't really see it like that. We don't see it in that terms, or in that terminology. And your source energy doesn't see it like that. It's not right or wrong. It just is. It's just where you're at that time. So in that sense, the limitation is also looking at lower and higher. It even sort of gets into the conversation about you need to do something to get somewhere. And in that sense, you do, but you don't, because when you actually start to connect into source energy, it dissolves things instantly, and it doesn't manifest something, because it actually, once you're in that source energy, you're expressing your light, your energy, and that automatically opens it up to what the outcome is, what the purpose is, what's needed within your reality and in your life. So again, consciousness is a reflection. Like consciousness, no, reality is a reflection of your consciousness. And this word like consciousness is quite a hard word to really sort of like explain and to really sort of define. But in my sort of like, consciousness is this, you know, when you open up to your consciousness is connected to like energy and vibrations and frequencies. So consciousness is this state of being. It's like the more you open up to your source energy, the more your consciousness expands. And what happens then is you open up more to insight, wisdom, understanding, but your soul that starts to express itself more fully, so that as it expresses it more fully, your perception and your consciousness of the world and this reality shifts and changes. But consciousness is also connected to, because it's energy and it's light, it connects to like the spirit world. You know, there's levels and spheres of consciousness within the spirit world. So consciousness is a very, very sort of like term that I feel we use as physical beings, but it's very sort of it's a very sort of expansive sort of like frequency. Being conscious as well in a physical way is being present, it's being open, it's having enough, you know, it's seeing things with clarity, it's understanding things as well. So consciousness is energy and light. So the more that you expand your energy and light, the more that you're able to integrate more wisdom, more sort of clarity. You start to see sort of more communication, more connections, and you also, as your consciousness expands and you connect to your source energy, you start to realize that source energy, that if you just sit in that, then it naturally aligns with the outcome that, or the highest outcome that's needed. Not even highest, but the outcome that's needed. You know, your source energy is a natural blueprint of creation that's ever evolving and ever expanding, as is consciousness. Consciousness works in perfect unity with your source energy. So as you open up and you start to really expand and start to integrate more and more of your source energy, where you're in that energy where you're not attached to things, then you open more, and it allows the flow. It allows your source energy to flow more with the infinite energy of like the the different realities, the different sort of like frequencies and spiritual spirits as well. So it's like consciousness is again, it shows to me again this notion of the law of oneness, that there is no separation. When you start to move more and more into spiritual realities, you realize that nothing's separate. So consciousness is part of source is part of everything, light is part of everything, energy is part of everything. Everything's ever evolving, nothing's ever standing still, nothing's ever separate, it's all connected. It's the same with the universal laws. I mean, even the notion of the universal law, like using the word law again, is a human term. When you look at the laws, in that sense, vibration, frequency, transmutation, oneness, correspondence, compensation, they're all like, again, they're all vibrations of this source energy, and they're working in perfect unity. Each of them are connected, and they're all like, they work in a sense like with the masters. When they talk about the ascended masters, and they talk about these kohans, and they talk about these different levels of light. Again, it's about that. It's about those light levels are not separate. There isn't a level to it. It's one frequency. It's one flow. It's a one frequency that just keeps flowing. It's not separate. And again, with the laws, it's the same. They're not separate, and you're not separate. And it's like, so the more you sort of like get into spiritual reality, and the more you go deeper, excuse me, the more you go into sorry about that the more you go into source, the more you realize there isn't really anything to do, there isn't really anything to manifest, because if you're in that source energy, you're already aligned, you're already harmonized. So actually, even being spiritual, it means being human, you don't need to create and manifest, you just need to be. And being in that source energy opens you up to the infinite energy and all the realities, the spirit, the spirituals, the ascended matter, the ethereal realms. All of that opens up when you start coming into your source energy. So this is why it's important to practice it. And practicing it allows you to integrate it more and start to experience what it means to be in source, to feel what it's like to be light, what it's like to be energy. And the more you do that, the more you're gonna naturally flow, and the flow of the universe will come in, and then it will be on it could be on the law of attraction, it could be on the law of compensation, it could be on the law of anything, but that's all part of the source energy. And this is why the fundamental law again, which is, I'm using the word law, but the fundamental like vibration or frequency of the universal law of oneness is fundamental, because it runs through everything. You know, nothing is separate at all. So it was just interesting, because when I was talking about this post this morning, and you know, everybody sort of like sees things differently, and again, that's part of the flow of the oneness of spiritual reality, and we all you know, integrate our source energy in a different way, and source energy is you know, that's our sort of individual blueprint. You know, this is what people say, like the qualities of the soul or the gifts of the soul. Well, that is your source energy, and we all connect to that differently. And this is why there's so many different sort of like variations of it. But each and every one of you holds that source energy, that source code in you, and how you express it is how you're meant to. Because like in that sense, it's like this is what creates this diversity as spiritual beings. So again, there's no right or wrong. This is, you know, we get caught up with right, wrong, you know, good, bad, and again, there cannot be any of that. That's an illusion as well, because once you're in source energy and we're expressing it, and you've come down to express your source code or your source energy in your way, and that's what brings, you know, and that's why you've got that piece of the puzzle. That's why you're that piece of the puzzle, because you're here to express it in that way. So it's again, how would you recognize source energy? It's where you feel at peace, you feel aligned, you feel passionate, you feel energized, you feel yeah. When I'm really connected into my source energy, I feel like I'm just a light. I'm just an energy that just vibrates, and like I said, there's nothing I need to do. There's nothing I need to say. I just need to be in that energy, and it's sort of like I'm energized. Um, I'm not even happy. There's not even a sense of happiness, because when I'm in that energy, um, I'm not attached to those kind of levels of happiness or something. I just feel like I'm in this vibration of perfection, of pure creation. And I have moments of that, but I don't have them all the time. Definitely not. If I did, you know, life would be absolutely, you know, joyful, and it would be this. I'd be in awe and wonder, but I'm not. I'm not all the time. I'm just saying I get snippets of this. But what I do is every day I try and create this, and the more that you create space for this source energy, the more that your purpose and your how you express your light will go towards your purpose, but also will bring you and attract things in your life that will align with you to bring you, you know, this peace, this harmony, this joy. You'll do something, or you'll be something that you know fulfills you as well. It's all that kind of thing, because you know this is what the source energy brings. It's this creation, and it will attract. But obviously there's another level to that. I mean, I'm not talking necessarily, our purposes aren't always our human jobs, although some people do things that they absolutely love, and they feel like that's um, you know, they're aligned to that. But like, even, you know, when you start looking at your role that you do, your job you do every day, you know, look at what you're drawn to, you know, what excites you, what you're passionate about, what makes you happy. Again, I don't want to talk about happiness, but it is about happiness, I suppose, in that way. But it's about what you're drawn to, what you're passionate about, and source energy will be manifesting along the lines in that. But what I'm trying to say about purpose is, like, I go to work every day, and I do a job where I work with people with complex needs, but my purpose isn't necessarily to do that job and do all those things that go with them, like risk assessments, all those kind of things. But there's another purpose, like where you know, this is what's behind that sometimes. You know, your purpose could be there, you know, you know, if you're a light worker, you're in that environment, and your purpose is to express light, and it's to connect and unify with others, and that could be one aspect of your purpose, and that's why you're in that job, even though it may be a job that doesn't, you know, mentally and intellectually, um, you know, fulfill you. But sometimes the purpose goes beyond intellect and physicality. It goes to it works on a different level, and source works on that level, and that's why it's important to allow source to work, and you know, trust and allow it to manifest and create, because it creates on a different level than your physical reality and the conscious level that we have of this 3D reality. So for me, source is really, really important in that way, and that's why I wanted to have a little bit of a video about that insight today. And when people talk about manifestation and creation, and that and this person was talking about manifestation, the joy of manifestation is manifesting as a human being. But for me, it goes beyond that. And when you were working with source, source is creating something. It's creating your purpose, and that isn't necessarily something that can be expressed physically or like in a human form, but it's happening. And the spirit world works like that. The spirit world is infinite layers of infinite vibrations and frequencies that are not necessarily visible, and they're not visible in this world because we're still in a very 3D reality. As we move past that, and we become connected more to our source, then we'll be able to express it more fully. But the planet has to be ready for that as well. Each and every one of us can strive to do that in our own lives, but the planet will also have to be, the vibration frequency on the planet will have to have sort of shifted and created for us to really, all of us, to start really expressing our purpose, our source energy in our lives. And this is what we're here for. This is what I believe some of what we're here for, is to prepare the planet for that. And this is why many of us and many of our purposes are here, and this is why we're here now. And this is why I do what I do, and I share these kind of things, because that's how I really, really feel. So anyway, that's the insight video for today. Check out my spiritual awareness and insight Facebook page. Like, subscribe, comment, follow. I'd love some comments. I'd love some questions. Spirit have always worked in a way where if somebody asks a question, I tend to get some energy or some frequency or vibration from that. I'm not saying I can answer the question, but usually it helps to unlock something or bring some sort of insight that allows you to start to really work and shift some of that the energies that are around you, to allow yourself to express your light and your energy. All right, that's the insight for today.